Good evening. I'm Kim Miller, Assistant to the President for the United Steelworkers. Thank you for joining us tonight as we discuss our We Supply America campaign. This is a union-wide effort to highlight the things we do and the stuff we make to keep America going. Right now, our nation needs aggressive investment to modernize our neglected infrastructure. This is important because it can revitalize our economy and our communities, and because it can benefit hundreds of thousands of USW members in the process. This means rebuilding not only our physical infrastructure, like crumbling roads, bridges, ports, and waterways, but also the social infrastructure of our schools, our communication networks, and our public health services. Done right, this will mean long-term economic resiliency. We can use the things that we make to do this work. We can invest in our domestic supply chains and build on American ingenuity. Over the next few weeks, the top leaders of our union will be joining you here on Facebook to talk about why all of this is so important, what we're doing to push our elected officials to act, and how you can help. They'll answer your questions and listen to your ideas. After all, it's our USW voices that make us stronger. So stay tuned. We've got exciting news to share about our plans for this summer that hopefully include a return to what's best about our union, and that's being together to fight the good fights. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our International President, Tom Conway, and International Vice President, Roxanne Brown, who will be spending some time with you tonight to discuss this important issue and how we supply America.
Thanks, Kim. And Rox and I are both pleased to join this tonight and to help sort of move this effort forward. What we really want to do is work together with our employers and across our union, across all our sectors, and make sure that our government understands that we do supply America, that we make the products that go into infrastructure rebuild, that we are a manufacturing union in a large way, and that the supply chain that's going to go underneath this effort and drive it and make it long and sustainable comes out of our union. It comes out of our members. And so we've got a lot of plans over the next couple of months to keep that going. It's going to be a busy month about infrastructure. We're going to continue to hear more and more about it. There's going to be a lot of discussion, and it's going to take a lot of work from our union. But look, this is important work. This is the foundation of what we do as a union. This is about jobs. It's about the growth of jobs and the revitalization of our nation. So look, we're happy to sort of kick this off together and talk to you about what it is we have planned. Rox?
Thanks, Tom. It's so great to be with everyone tonight. And I would echo everything that Tom said. And, I would remind everyone, we've had a survey going for a while now. If you go to www.uswvoices.org, where you can tell us what you make, where you work, what you do that lends to infrastructure in some way, because what we're trying to do is tell our story as the Steelworkers Union about how you all fit and how our union fits in infrastructure and the critical role that you all play every single day, in terms of infrastructure. So please go to www.uswvoices and fill out that survey so that we can best tell your story about how you fit in infrastructure.
Look, the government's going to spend some money here. And while it's not been determined yet exactly how much, it's going to be a lot of money. And it's going to be a lot of taxpayer dollars. And it ought to be done here. I mean, these are the tax dollars we're paying. And as citizens and as steel workers, the work that comes out of this infrastructure plan belongs here with us. So that's what we're trying to drive, and that's what we're trying to get at. And it's important that we get your help and we do it together. So look, with that, Rox and I are happy to take your questions, try and bring whatever clarity you need to this, and together move this forward.
Hi, I'm Glenn TROUP, and I'm from Local 4950 CNA. My question is, as a healthcare worker during the pandemic, the last year plus has been hardest for many reasons. We're still going through it every day, and it's honestly sometimes hard to focus on anything except getting through the day. Why is this infrastructure plan so important to us healthcare workers? And more importantly, how is it going to help us recover from this pandemic?
look, in some ways, healthcare is where this whole question of infrastructure surfaced. And when we got hit with this pandemic, the country quickly realized we no longer made the stuff we needed to make in order to get through it. And it highlighted and opened up a key discussion about, well, how did we find ourselves here? And how come we don't have inhalators? And how come we don't have masks and gloves and the stuff that we would expect our nation to have? And so it launched this discussion about, well, for decades, we've allowed this decay to take place and we've allowed this to languish this way. And so, look, I think in some ways, healthcare workers were sort of the canary in the mine shaft here. And I think we're going to do better because of it. And there's a better focus, and there's a focus on the dangers of healthcare and to healthcare workers. And so I think this is the beginning of recognizing the kind of work that goes on in healthcare centers.
I completely agree with everything that you just said. And, I think President Biden, as he thought about putting this plan together, really thought about how we could invest in public health infrastructure, essentially. And because our dirty laundry was essentially exposed over the last year, like Tom just said, in the healthcare sector and just in the supply chain for healthcare. And it was so apparent that we could not supply because we did not have the stuff to provide our healthcare workers with masks and gloves and gowns. A big part of this infrastructure package actually invests a ton of money in pandemic preparedness, future pandemic preparedness. So, God forbid the next time a pandemic hits this country or the world, we're better prepared. And a big part of that is by building out the manufacturing supply chain in healthcare, the medical supply chain, where a lot of you are, making a lot of these components in different ways for the healthcare sector. So that would be about $30 billion. That's a big investment in healthcare. I know that we have a lot of members who are vets. There's definitely a big focus too in this package on trying to make sure that the VA healthcare infrastructure is built out in a real way at the state level so that those systems look and are as strong as they should be as well for veterans. So it's a really important piece. There's a lot of thought that's been put into this healthcare infrastructure piece, and we're very excited to see that.
Look, healthcare workers have had a pretty tough time of it the last 15 months, and people have become aware of dying on a job and catching the virus while trying to save others' lives. And so I think there's an appreciation out there of our healthcare workers, and they've been very taxed and they've been very exhausted. And so I think the country recognizes it. The investment is going to be put there, and I think it will sort of change the nature of healthcare going forward, both in who and how we make vaccines, how they're delivered, and how healthcare is going to operate in the country going forward.
Hi, my name is Kelly Verb of Local 2227 in Pennsylvania. I work at U.S. Steel, and I'm a proud woman of steel for 25 years. My union job has allowed me to raise my family with dignity and give back to my community. Recently, U.S. Steel announced it was canceling a $1.2 billion investment in our plant. This news was devastating. Tom, how could this national infrastructure push help us and our employers find the stability that comes with steady work if we start making roads, bridges, and other things? And how will it help my siblings in other sectors, not just manufacturing?
Yeah, Kelly, that's really been disturbing and disappointing news. And everybody in the Mon Valley feels betrayed and abandoned by what U.S. Steel has done. And look, I think the Mon Valley still is frankly a low-cost producer within the U.S. steel system. It has a bit of a niche market on important issues that are out there and items that we supply. And while there's a narrow hot mill and we all wanted to see the expansion take place, this doesn't mean the end of things for the Mon Valley. But, without that $1 billion investment, it's just very discouraging. And the company has made what I think is a really significant mistake in going forward. But all that being said, this infrastructure plan is really going to be underpinned by steel products, and where we build and where we rebuild. And so there's a tremendous future for steel in a whole lot of ways. And I think it's part of the whole recovery that this pandemic has caused the nation to go through, sort of terrible economic times. This is the key to lifting it out and to putting the country back on solid footing. And so I think we're going to see supply chains built out in manufacturing that are going to require steels that come from all the plants, including the Mon Valley. We're going to see a lot more products built. If we have a plan that includes building 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations across the nation, there's going to be steel in those, in the manufacture of that. So those examples exist over and over. And in order to get out of this economic slump that this pandemic has brought about, and in some ways prior to the pandemic in many manufacturing industries, this long-term fix for the country and this infrastructure investment and spend is crucial to get that done. So, look, while it's discouraging that one company makes a bad decision, there's still a lot of opportunity here for us. And having that sort of underpinning of a long-term stable market with an investment in infrastructure across all these sectors is what's going to bring growth, and the economy is going to be able to thrive again.
Good evening. My question is for Vice President Brown. My name is Justin Donnelly from Local 912. I work at the Toledo Refining Company, and we're currently in the fight of our lives to keep our jobs. We appreciate everything the USW has done for us, but to be honest, when we hear talk about green energy and green jobs, that makes us pretty nervous. Can you explain where my brothers and sisters and I in oil, mining, and other industries fit into this plan?
Justin, thank you for that question. And it's a really important question. And I think one thing that our union definitely wants to be very clear about is when we're talking about an investment, a massive investment in the infrastructure of this country and in the manufacturing and industrial sectors of this country, we are talking about all of our sectors, including oil and mining. There is no strong domestic industrial sector, strong manufacturing sector without all USW sectors. And there's a clear path for everyone. You hear green and clean and a lot of the rhetoric, that's on television and, coming from policymakers and others. And it's hard to see yourself, right, in that, Justin, because it's unclear, where sectors like oil and mining fit. But we want to be very explicit when we say that there is a direct role for oil and mining and other really heavy industrial sectors. And our union has done a lot of work, when it comes to oil. When you hear our union say things like, we need technologies to make sure that manufacturing can be brought into the future in a cleaner, more efficient way, we are talking about the oil sector. When you hear us say carbon capture, utilization, and storage, we're talking about a technology that you can put on refineries to take the carbon and sequester it underground and move it elsewhere so that refineries can continue to operate in a cleaner, more efficient way. When we talk about direct air capture, again, we're talking about a technology that will take the carbon from your facility and move it somewhere else for another use. So again, your refinery can continue to operate in a clean, efficient way into the future. You know, when people hear green, they think only renewables. And our union has never taken that position. Our position is all of the above. There is no silver bullet that is going to get this country to its clean energy goals. Wind is not going to do it by itself. Solar is not going to do it by itself. You know, you hear, talk of electric vehicles, which is another concern, we know coming from the oil sector. Yes, the transportation sector is transforming. There is a change that's coming, but there will still be a role for oil in the economy writ large. And we want to make sure that we help craft that role and that place for the refining sector. So, I would just, trust us when we tell you we've got your back. And we've been working really hard, not just with this administration, but with previous administrations to make sure that when they're talking about creating and maintaining good family sustaining jobs, that they are remembering that the refining sector in this country is a key part of that. And the refining sector in this country lends so much to local and state economies and families. And we have to make sure that that we're protecting that sector as well. And to be honest, one of the best ways that we can ensure a future for the refining sector is through technology, and technology that removes carbon from the air. And the Biden administration strongly supports those types of technologies. In this American Jobs Plan, there is about $300 million for manufacturing retooling, so that technologies like carbon capture can be deployed at refining facilities. So I really appreciate that question. I think it gives us an opportunity to be very clear about where your union is when it comes to all of our sectors and the work that we've been doing in this space for a really long time to make sure that there's a place for refining in the future. The other sector that you asked about is mining. Without question, our members mine pretty much everything except coal, right? And a lot of what you all mine are critical materials that are essential for the clean energy economy. We need lithium for batteries, we need copper, we need all these other critical materials. We want to make sure that we are sourcing these critical materials from right here in North America versus other countries who are doing a really piss poor job when it comes to labor and environmental standards. We want to source, from North America, where we have good union represented workers who are doing this work and mining these critical materials in the safest way possible.
Look, I'd just like to reiterate what Rox said, because I think it's crucial, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there. One of the easiest places for us to capture carbon is at a refinery. To be able to retrofit an operation, it's more difficult at a steel plant or at a cement plant, but at a refinery, it's pretty simple, and it's a proven process. And so it's just a matter of putting the money and putting the resource there. So when people hear about carbon and carbon problems and a new carbon future, it does not mean that we have to shut down the fossil fuels to get there. We can contain the fossil fuels, we can contain the carbon. It's going to take an investment, but this does not have to come at the sacrifice of jobs in the oil sector or the mining sector or others. And so that's what's good about this. This is not an infrastructure plan that's designed to take people and put them out of work. This is designed to create jobs at the places we're at. Look, the reality of someone coming out of a mine or someone leaving a control room in a refinery And next week, getting a job, building or installing solar panels, it's unrealistic. That's not going to happen. And in real life, skills don't swap that way. So where we're at in good paying jobs right now in those sectors, we're going to maintain them, and we're going to insist that the technology goes in to support us and back us up. And in those other emerging technologies and carbon jobs, we have to insist that they pay the same kind of money, that they're the same kind of good union living wage jobs that exist in our other locations now. So this is not something people should be overly frightened about, or that it's some impending doom about our jobs. We're going to cover our jobs, and our jobs have what have built us this far. So I think it's important as we talk about carbon that it's not a desperate plan that's out there.
Hi, my name is ALYCIA Allen, and I'm with Local 8888 in Newport News, Virginia. I am one of 10,000 people who helped build nuclear aircraft carriers for the United States Navy. Passing this infrastructure plan will not only help secure work, but it will also secure our nation. I am a wife and a mom, and having this great union job and benefits help me provide for my family. I want everyone to be able to have this chance. How can we help more Americans understand why we need to ensure we rebuild America with union jobs?
Thanks for the question, ALYCIA, and thank you so much, you and our other 10,000 plus members at 8888 for the incredible work that you do every single day building nuclear aircraft carriers and submarines for the Navy. We're so proud of you. It's a really great question, and I have to say, we're in a really unique time where it's not just the labor movement talking about how important it is to create union jobs and the benefit of union jobs for the economy. And, over the last several months, we've heard the word union come out of President Biden's mouth more times than we can count. The word union come out of the mouths of this administration, from cabinet secretaries to senior staff, and all the way down in this administration, at more time than any other time in history. I've been with the union now for, I think this is my 23rd year, and have been through a few administrations, and I've never seen anything like it here in DC. And so it's clear that the union benefit is important as we think about recovering this economy from this period that we have just been through and are still in. And, President Biden talks about it, that the way that we get there is by creating good union family sustaining jobs. And he literally says those words. And right now we're at a point where over 60% of Americans know and understand and support unions, and think that unions are a key driver to getting us to where we need to be. So, and that's been built into this plan. Quite literally, the Protecting the Right to Organize Act was built into this infrastructure plan. So, I think it's so refreshing. And, I can't wait to hear what Tom has to say about this from his perspective too. But it's so refreshing for us to have other people outside of our movement, outside of our union and outside of the labor movement, talking about the important role of unions and being an economic engine for workers across this country to actually be able to provide for their families. And, I think there's so much that we can do to help support this push that is coming from this administration for the first time, and so much that we are doing. And so we're excited, and hopefully we can actually see this plan over the finish line and have it include the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, so that we can actually make it easier for workers to join a union.
It's really an important question, and coming from the shipyard, I think it's all that more important. and you're sort of curious, well, what's our role in the shipyard? But those skills that really don't exist in many other places that build aircraft carriers, that build submarines, are exactly the kind of skills that this infrastructure plan is going to foster. And so if you think about offshore wind on the eastern seaboard of the United States, where we're going to build thousands and thousands of wind turbines, we're going to need ships to service them. We're going to need the sort of equipment that you build in 8888 in order to run and sustain that industry going forward. And America hasn't built ships, merchant vessels, in so many years and have shut down, but we still have deep water ports in Baltimore and Philadelphia and other locations where this nation ought to be in the shipbuilding business. So I think there's an example about the growth down in 8888 and the skills that you have and the folks that have end stamps and can do that kind of work that is crucial about how we're going to do this going forward. And that sort of work is on the horizon. It's not a pipe dream. We are going to build that offshore wind. We are going to need those Jones Act ships. And we are going to need people with the skills and the abilities and the knowledge that exists down there at Newport News. So, look, I think you're going to play more of a central role than you realize, but it's yet to emerge exactly how right now.
You know, Alicia, you mentioned that you're a mom of a young daughter and that your union job has been able to help you to provide for your family. You know, again, just emphasizing the family sustaining nature of union jobs and what what the overall goal is here, right? We have an economy that is slowly getting back on track, but is still reeling in a lot of different ways. And the people that have been the most impacted by the last year and a half have been women and women of color, right? And in particular, have seen the most job loss and because of this pandemic. And so when we talk about the union benefit and the union benefit when it comes to women, it cannot be overstated that we are at a time when we have to push as hard as we possibly can to make sure that workers across the country have access to good union jobs like we have at 8888 at Huntington Ingalls building ships and at other union represented facilities across this country. Because this is the way that women across the country that have been so impacted are going to be able to make a way and to be able to provide for their kids in the same way that you're able to provide for your beautiful daughter. So just want to emphasize that we have a lot of work ahead of us to recover and to help the people who've been most impacted by this pandemic to recover as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Montreal Stibe of Local 5702, where I serve as the president down here in Louisiana. My employer is Noranda, where we make alumina that goes inside of anything from household products to vehicles, cars. Our local has been working hand in hand with management at my plant to help push for this infrastructure bill because we know that at the end it'll help us all do better in moving our business forward. We wrote a joint letter together and sent it to the Biden administration to put some pressure on getting this passed through the administration. I guess at this point, I would like to know what else can we and other steelworkers do to help get this infrastructure plan bill passed through with all this political BS going on.
Montreal, thanks for that question. Look, aluminum is an important sector. It's an important sector of our economy. And while over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of changes in our aluminum industry, it doesn't change things. And you guys down here are the last ones actually producing alumina. But if you think about the electric grid that needs to be replaced, the whole system of electricity distribution across the United States, it's going to require massive amounts of aluminum. The electrification of fleets is going to require massive amounts of aluminum. So I think aluminum and its markets, and there's been a tremendous rise in the can market. We see aluminum companies open can shops across the country. And so while there's a bit of a transformation going on, we're going to need a lot more aluminum. And we've had a tough run on smelters in this country. So we're going to need to do some work with smelters and bring it back in. So we're not reliant on Chinese or Russian or other aluminum that comes in from around the world. So look, I think alumina and aluminum are going to play a crucial role in infrastructure here in a lot of different ways. So look, your other question, the other part of your question was, what can you do to help? And it's important to remember right now we have not a bill, we have a proposal from the president. And it still needs to go through the House and it still needs to go through the Senate. And there's still going to be a lot of action to drive our government to do the right thing. And so we've asked Amber Miller, who is the director of our Rapid Response Organization, to join with us tonight and talk us through the steps that that's going to take and what we may ask you to do and the help we'll need as we go forward on that. So, Amber?
Thanks, Tom. And, thanks, Montrell, for you and your local doing one of those joint letters. They're so crucial, to what we're doing within this campaign because, we need to make sure that we're lifting up what it is that our members do and what it is that they make and where that falls in within the supply chain, because the administration needs to know, where our folks are at when a bill does finally come down and, we're able to highlight, because we already have throughout these, through these letters, what our folks do, then we're going to be first in line priority for some of these projects. And so we all know when our employers do better, we do better, right? So we do better at the table. So it's such a big part of this project. So we appreciate the letter. Another reason that's important that kind of falls into sort of next steps with the bill is we're doing these letters, we're also making sure that our state, federal, and local legislators see them. So when a letter does come down, they're reminded, when a bill does come down, they're reminded, what it is that their constituents do and make. And so they need to be thoughtful about how they're crafting the bill and honestly about how they're voting on it. So, the nice thing about infrastructure is it's not red or blue. It is concrete, nonpartisan. It's bipartisan. So it's really a neat project for us to be able to work on because that's really centric to what rapid response does. So again, I think the best thing that we can say is to continue on with these letters, have conversations with folks in our locals and communities about how important this legislation is when it comes down, and to keep having those conversations and hold our legislators accountable. When a bill does come, we need to let them know that this is important to us and important to our union and important to our communities and our employers, and that they need to do the right thing here and have our back.
We'd like to thank you for joining us tonight, and thanks for your questions and comments in our feed. Watch our social media and visit uswvoices.org to get updates, and join us for our next Facebook program that's scheduled for May 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern with Secretary Treasurer John Shin and Vice President Leanne Foster. Stay safe, everyone, and solidarity forever.